With the battle against Sukuna finally coming to a close, I think it's safe to say there are no more new curse techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen, which means it's the perfect time to rank them all, from the outright bad ones to the overpowered ones, and I promise, some of these rankings will surprise you, because they also surprised me. Here is the basic criteria I used, and let's get into it. In last place, we have Remy and her scorpion tail. This ability just sucks. It essentially gives Remy a third limb that can be used in combat, which isn't inherently bad, but it's just so incredibly weak. I mean, Megumi shoved it off like it was a mosquito bite, which it basically is in the world of Jujutsu, just without the malaria. Considering sorcerers get thrown through buildings, cut up like a cucumber, and have cars thrown at them, I don't think a little jab to the side is gonna do much to them, which is why this ability is in last. At 56, we have sugar manipulation belonging to Amai. This ability is also pretty bad. It essentially allows Amai to produce sugar from his cursed energy, which he can use to make desserts and also keep people alive temporarily. The second aspect of this ability is the main thing keeping it out of last, as it at least has some support applications. Plus, we've actually seen it have a bit of use in the battle against Sukuna, which is way more than we can say about Remy's hair anal beads. At 55, we have another one of Reggie's squad, Chizuru, who has a claw hand. We never actually see what this claw actually does, but we know Chizuru obtained 28 points with it in the Culling games, which means it at least has some applicable offensive power, which is more than I can say for Amai's ability. And he at least has points in the Culling games, which is more than we can say for Remy, so he's above both of them. At 53, we have Ranta's ability. This one might be underranked, I'll be honest. The ability basically allows Ranta to hold someone still at the cost of his physical well-being. We see this used once on partially awakened Maki, and it ended up costing him his life. So either this ability is weak or Ranta is, and I'd wager it's probably both. The dude was raised in one of the big 3 Jujutsu households and he still couldn't do anything. Weak and weak. At 53, we have Immortality, which is brought to you by Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade, the first and only official mobile game of Jujutsu Kaisen. Have you ever wanted to fight alongside Yuji and Gojo in their most intense battles? Well, now you can in Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade. Build your team, exercise curses, and take control of curse techniques yourself in this critically acclaimed mobile game published globally by Bilibili Games. This game seems seriously fun. It's reproduced the story of the original anime with brand new fully recorded voiceover, and now you can pre-register for it on the App Store or Google Play Store ahead of its worldwide release later this year. Players who pre-register will get exclusive rewards, so don't wait. Click on the link in the description or pinned comment to register right now. And thank you so much to Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade for sponsoring this video. Immortality is another weird ability. On paper, it sounds great. Who wouldn't want to live forever? Well, like most things, it's not great in Jujutsu Kaisen. See, immortality does not mean freedom from aging, so you end up looking like a thumb. And unless you absorb a 13-year-old every 500 years, you destabilize and basically become a cursed spirit. It also doesn't give the user any adverse defensive abilities either, so it's not true immortality, it just prevents the user from dying of natural causes. On top of these conditions, it also doesn't give the user any offensive abilities, which matters when we're ranking for strength. The only reason it's kind of not terrible is it essentially gives the user infinite time to train, but considering the body continues to deteriorate, that doesn't really mean much. At 52, we have Momo's ability, Tool Manipulation. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this technique. By definition, it allows its user to control cursed tools, and we see it primarily used by Momo to control her broom, allowing her to fly and use a wind scythe. The thing is, we don't know if this iteration of tool manipulation is tied to just Momo's broom, or if she can control other cursed tools as well. If it's the latter, this ability could be broken, but we only see it used as the former. This is the main reason it's not lower, as it at least has the potential to be strong, unlike any of the abilities below it. Next, we have Utehime's ability, Solo Forbidden Area. This ability basically buffs anyone that's in its effective range, and the buff can be improved via hand signs, dancing, and other means. All in all, it can boost effectiveness to 120%, so 20% more than normal. This is not great. Like, it's not bad or useless, but all things considered, a 20% boost is not that much, especially considering it uses the sorcerer's base strength as a starting point. This means for stronger sorcerers, it will be somewhat effective, but for weaker ones, it's not going to do a lot. Overall, this ability is just underwhelming, and it really doesn't stand up to a lot of the other abilities we have to talk about, especially since it has no offensive use of its own. At 50, we have Junpei's Shikigami, Moon Dredge. This is the first ability that is like somewhat not terrible, and as such, it caps off our low-tier abilities. Moondredge is a jellyfish that acts both offensively via its poisonous body and spikes, and defensively by acting as a cushion to protect Junpei. While this doesn't sound too bad, we have to remember that Season 1 Yuji, with almost no experience, absolutely rocked this Shikigami, meaning that it literally cannot be that strong. This could also partially be a sorcerer issue since Junpei was brand new, but we're gonna blame it on the jellyfish and move on. At 49, we finally move to a decent ability, Blazing Courage. Blazing Courage is a weird ability to rank. It seems like it could be strong as it is possessed by a grade 1 sorcerer, but we only ever see it used once and it doesn't seem to do all that much. It basically just replaces a part of a sword that has been broken, insinuating it can only be used if the sword is broken in the first place. It's also ineffective at killing either Mai or Maki, which is not a good sign of strength at all, and we only see it used once before Ogi is killed by Maki, which is another sign that it's not great. At 48, we have Cursed Speech. Seeing Cursed Speech this low might seem odd, but when you look at it all in all, it's really not that great of an ability. The main advantage of Cursed Speech is that it is extremely versatile. Pretty much any word you can think of will have an effect, meaning the only limits are the language you are using. But this power comes with a lot of drawbacks, and big ones too. First and foremost, this ability does damage to the person using it. The stronger the word used or the stronger the opponent it is used on, the more the user is hurt after saying the word. On top of this, opponents that are stronger are affected less by the words too. And the ability has a direct counter in basic Cursed Energy Reinforcement, which a sorcerer can use to cover their ears, preventing the words from doing any damage at all. So while Cursed Speech is a strong and versatile ability, the amount of drawbacks keep it from being any higher. Next, we have one of the first Culling Games abilities we see, Aircraft Hair. We're lumping these two together because they're basically the same. This ability is exactly what it looks like and is exactly as dumb as it looks. The sorcerers can turn their hair into vehicles for flying, and that's about it. It doesn't seem to give them any particular strength, and while the ability to fly is cool in general and would be sick to have IRL, in the world of Jujutsu, it just doesn't do that much. At 46, we have Mystic Beast Amber, the ability of Kashimo. This ability gives its user complete control over electricity. Every single usage, from using electricity to charge their body, to using electricity to create EMPs, or just use it as lightning. Anything that can be accomplished with electricity can be done by this ability. So why is it so low? Well, it literally kills its user once they are done using it. No matter how broken an ability seems, if it kills the user upon completion, it just cannot be that good. This also means that it can only be used one single time, which is another mark against it in my books. Next, we have another Zenin ability, Injinichi's Fist Attack. This is another attack we don't get to see much of, but it seems kind of powerful. It was capable of destroying a building, and Ranta expected it to kill Maki, meaning it has to be like okay-ish, but it's hard to tell since we only saw it used one time. It could be a much stronger ability, but I can't justify putting it any higher off of what we see, especially considering it did next to nothing to Maki. At 44, we have Photo Manipulation, the ability of Nanako. Seeing this ability up here might be surprising, but it's actually kind of solid. As the name implies, she can manipulate the photos she takes. We don't know the full parameters of this ability, but it seems pretty okay, as it was able to save her and Mirako from Jogo, which is kind of a big feat. The main thing holding this ability back is just that Nanako is not that strong, and as such, the showcase for this ability was a bit lackluster. Like, saving them from Jogo is literally the only thing we've seen it do, so it's really hard for me to put this ability any higher without any more evidence for it being good. Next is her other half, Mimiko, who has the ability Doll Manipulation. I didn't even know this, but according to her wiki, her ability allows her to emulate anything that she does to her stuffed bear onto her opponents. She seems to mostly use this by hanging them, but the implications are there that it acts as a voodoo doll for her target. This is really good in theory, as it could allow her to do damage to even people like Gojo if she can affect his body directly. The issue is that's in theory, and in reality we see very little of this ability besides the hanging aspect. This means we can't really take theoreticals into account, and from what we've seen, even the hanging aspect doesn't seem too strong, as Ijichi was able to get out of an encounter with her unscathed, and he's not even a full-fledged sorcerer. I love him, but it's true. So Mimiko sits down here. At 42, we have Chojiro's technique, Earth Clap Thou Cheeks. That's not its real name, it doesn't have a name. This ability is simple. It allows Chojiro to create stuff out of earth. We only see him use it to create these hands, and they don't seem to do much, but they were more effective at slowing Maki down than anyone else in the Zenin clan, excluding Noya. This is the main reason he's above Junichi and Ranta, but he still can't be any higher. Next is the Love Rendezvous, the ability belonging to Kirara. This ability is kind of unique in that its complexity is part of what makes it good. I'm not going to try to do an in-depth explanation, but but basically people get stars put on them, and depending on the star, they either attract or repel from other stars. This is pretty much a support ability, but it does the supporting really well. Unless you have prior knowledge on the Southern Cross, it's going to be hard to figure out what's going on with this ability, making it hard to deal with. However, it does seem to lack a little bit in terms of offensive capabilities, and considering we're ranking for strength, this is the main thing holding the ability back from being higher up. Another ability without much offensive capability is Painkiller, the ability of Arata. You might be surprised to see this ability this high up, but it's actually a really good ability. It saved the lives of 2 different sorcerers and allowed Yuji to beat Mahito. Maybe it's not as good as Reverse Curse Technique 99% of the time, but that doesn't change that it still has good support use for those who can use Reverse Curse Technique, as it gives them more time to heal those who need it. Plus, it saved my goats Yuta and Nobara, so I'm at least like a little bit biased. At 39, we have Hazanoki's ability, which is just making body parts explode. This ability is kind of sick, and it gives the user a decent amount of versatility, as any body part they're willing to sacrifice can be made into an explosive. So you have to be careful of things like fingers, eyeballs, and teeth, which are not always easy to keep track of in the heat of battle. The technique also forces the user to learn Reverse Curse Technique, as without it, they're just gonna rip their body apart. Really, there's nothing holding it back from being higher than 39th, it just gets outpaced by everything above it, like Blood Manipulation, which is the next ability we'll be talking about. Blood Manipulation is such an unfortunate ability. It's one of those abilities where the sky's the limit, as the user can do anything they can think of with their blood. The issue is there is a different kind of limit, the limit of the human body. 99% of Blood Manipulation users will not be able to use this technique to its fullest extent, because they need to use their own blood to keep them alive, meaning they have a limited amount of blood to work with. This means it's one of the few abilities that can actually kill its user if they're not smart with their blood, and that alone is reason enough to keep it low in the ranking. Next, we have Prayer Song, the ability belonging to Miguel. I'm gonna be honest, this ability is really hard for me to rank. Not only did we only see it in action one time, we only saw it against Sukuna. It's like trying to scale how strong a gun is compared to a nuke. The strength of Sukuna just skews the perception of strength so much, and it isn't helped by the fact that it's hard to observe this technique itself. It isn't something we can physically see in the manga, making it hard to tell what it's actually doing. It's said to buff Miguel and debuff his opponents, but we don't really see how much it actually debuffs Sukuna, so its effectiveness is really obscure. To be honest, based on the description alone, I don't think it's a very impressive technique on its own. It really only seems to be good because it's being used by a really competent sorcerer who is almost a perfect match for the technique. Kind of like our technique at 36, Bird Manipulation. On the surface, Bird Manipulation seems like an abysmally weak technique. It just allows for the control of black birds, allowing the user to use them for surveillance and not much else. Except, you know, turning them into missiles. Yeah, the only thing keeping this ability out of the bottom tier is Bird Strike. It is an absolutely broken ability that forces the birds to form a binding vow to sacrifice themselves for Mei, allowing them to do massive damage to almost anyone they come in contact with. Here's the issue though, this part of the technique only exists because Mei was so hell-bent on pushing her technique as far as possible. If not for that aspect, which is on the onus of the user, the technique would be completely unnoteworthy. Since that's the only reason this technique is deadly at all, I can't put it any higher. Next we have G War Staff, the ability of Charles. This ability gives its user precognition once they fill up the War Staff with enough blood. This is kind of both a curse tool and a curse technique, which is kind of cool. Precognition is always a good ability, no matter what series. Seeing the future gives the user an inherent advantage, which is good, but here's the thing about this ability. It still relies on the user being competent for it to be fully utilized. This matters because we're getting close to the point where some abilities are just good no matter how strong the user is, and these are inherently better than ones that depend on the user's skill. Plus, the person using this technique wasn't a particularly strong sorcerer, so it's hard to tell exactly how strong it actually is. At 34, we have Ratio. Look, I love Nanami, but this ability has not aged well. When it was first introduced, it seemed pretty strong, but after Shibuya and the culling games and all the power-ups characters have gotten, it just looks a bit mid. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's really a one-trick ability, and its effect isn't even all that strong, all things considered. This is another case of an ability being carried by a strong sorcerer, which I believe distorts how good we think the ability is. Ratio is not amazing, but Nanami sure is. At 33, we have an ability belonging to someone who is way less awesome than Nanami. It's Kenjaku's body hopping ability. Body hopping is a bizarre ability. The effect is simple, but it's hard to rank. It's kind of like immortality, as the person that has it won't die of old age, but it's even better because they won't get old, they can just swap to a new body. Body hopping also allows the user to use the abilities of the body that they're in, which sounds good in theory, but it's actually what makes this ability hard to rank, because it could be broken if they're in a body with a broken ability, or mid as hell if they're in a body that has nothing going on. Statistically speaking though, there are way more mid abilities than broken ones, so over a long period of time, the user would likely be not broken more often than they're broken. Plus, the bodies of stronger sorcerers are harder to get a hold of in general, which makes it even harder to get broken abilities. So while body hopping can be broken, I think it's going to be average more often than not, which is why it's near the middle of the ranking. Next is inverse. This ability is really middle of the road, ironically enough. It does its job well, but it's not unbeatable. Really, the biggest advantage of this ability is that you can't tell whether or not it's active, meaning you have to kind of guess and use your own intuition, which can be hard for less strong sorcerers. I don't really have much else to say on this ability, so let's just move on to 31, which is Miracles, the ability of Haruta. I don't know about you, but the fact Haruta can just survive 6 times he's supposed to die is pretty overpowered in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, especially considering how frequently people die. I mean, if he was in the battle against Sukuna, he could have blocked 6 of the killing blows that ended so many sorcerers. This ability is almost the opposite of ones like Ratio and Bird Manipulation. I think it's a good ability just with an awful pilot, like abysmal, like one of the worst sorcerers we see. But even though it is good for self-preservation, it doesn't really do much offensively, so I can't put it any higher. Next we have the Seance technique, which is a funky fun time. It essentially allows Ogami or her grandson to use the body of a person they have the body part of. We see this primarily used with Toji, which doesn't really go well. This makes it kind of hard to rank because its most prominent usage was a failure of the technique. We also don't know how it interacts with sorcerers. Do the body snatchers get the ability of the body they're in, or is it truly the body? Between the lack of information and the failure to control Toji, I can't really justify putting it any higher. At 29, we have another case of a bad pilot with a good technique, Bagman and his cloning ability. When you look at what this ability is actually capable of, it's actually pretty solid. I mean, even Teen Gojo said it was a pretty good ability. It allows the user to create up to 5 duplications of themselves, which can be spread out over an area. These clones seem to retain the strength of the original clone. On top of this, clones can be destroyed and created at will, giving the user a lot of versatility too. A strong user could probably use this ability in creative and unexpected ways. Unfortunately, the only person we saw use it was Bagman, who was not all that great. At 28, we have Nobara's technique, Straw Doll. Straw Doll is a great ability. It's broken into 2 main parts, Resonance and Hairpin. Resonance is the one that makes this ability good, as it allows Nobara to damage any target's main body as long as she has a body part to use the technique on. This ability has proven pivotal a number of times throughout the show, as it allowed Yuji to beat Mahito and now Sukuna as well. Hairpin is pretty decent too, allowing Nobara to make her nails explode, but compared to Resonance, it's just not the star of the show. This is an ability that can do major damage to even the King of Curses, and that alone is reason enough for the higher ranking. Another ability up here because of feats against Sukuna is Heart Catch, the ability of LaRue. This is mostly a support ability, allowing LaRue to essentially use a giant hand on his target, using it to restrain them or throw them or do whatever hands do. This is already pretty good, but what makes it broken is his secondary ability, Cutie Honey, which forcibly draws the attention of someone grabbed by Heart Catch to LaRue, creating a major distraction. This effectively creates an opening against any opponent LaRue is fighting, allowing his allies to gain a guaranteed advantage. As you can see, this ability has both offensive and support uses, which hasn't been too common up to this point. So while neither one is overly broken, together they make a pretty good ability. Next at 26 is Ino's ability, Auspicious Beast Summons. This ability is kind of the little brother of the 10 Shadows technique. It allows Ino to control 4 different beasts that all serve different purposes. There's Kaichi, the homing projectile, Raiki, the water substance that covers his body, increasing his mobility and defense, Kirin, which allows Ino to ignore all pain he endures but wipes out his stamina, and Ryu, which is a dragon that attacks an opponent. These 4 beasts all act and work well together, boosting the user's offenses, defenses, and mobility, making it a really well-rounded ability without being completely broken, or broken at all. Unfortunately though, because it's so well balanced, it can't really be higher up, as this is where abilities start to become broken. After our next ability, which is Ui's teleportation ability. It's crazy that a 12-year-old's ability is this good. The little dude is just destined for fame in the world of Jujutsu. This is probably the best pure support ability in the show, allowing the user to teleport people to and from locations they have previously marked. This alone is really good, as we see it play a super central role in the fight against Sukuna, but that's not the only application. It can also be used on 2 different people with their permission, allowing their souls to swap bodies. This allows 2 people to essentially body body swap, which is super useful for training, as we once again see in the battle against Sukuna. It's the reason Yuta was able to use Limitless at all, and it's also the reason so many people were able to get so strong in such a short amount of time. The main thing holding this ability back is that it has no offensive use, but considering that, 25th is still pretty respectable. At 24, we have Puppet Manipulation. It might be surprising to see Puppet Manipulation this low, but we have to remember Mechamaru was an outlier with this technique thanks to his heavenly restriction. Most sorcerers would not be able to do what he did with it because they don't have the cursed energy pool or the super long range control he did. That being said, it's still a solidly strong technique. Next is Sky Manipulation. Sky Manipulation is exactly what it sounds like. The user can manipulate the sky around them to their advantage. This ability is great to control a battlefield, which can give the user an inherent advantage. And it also has a strong offensive attack in Thin Ice Breaker, which seems to do major damage to anyone that takes a hit from it. It also allows the user to fly, which is nice but not all that important. This ability allowed Uro to kind of hold her own against Ryo and Yuta, who are both a decent bit stronger than her, so that's a pretty good showing of this ability's strength. While we're in Sendai, we might as well talk about Cockroach Manipulation, the ability belonging to Kuroushi. This ability is really strong. We've reached that point. Cockroach Manipulation allows the user to control cockroaches in a number of ways, most notably a swarm that is capable of consuming normal people in a matter of seconds. This technique is really dangerous to those that do not have reverse curse technique, and even those that do can still have issues with it, as Uro lost her arm to it. Kuroushi as a curse spirit even gave Yuta some trouble, but that was more likely because of his curse tool than his technique. This is the main reason it's not any higher up. We're just ranking Cockroach Manipulation, not taking the Festering Life Blade into account, and it was a pretty big part of why this technique seemed so threatening. Next we have Anti-Gravity System. This ability is a bit hard to rank, as 99% of the time we see it used, we actually saw its curse technique reversal, which was used by Kenjaku to enforce a high gravitational pull on the area around him. This alone is a good ability, as we've seen it stop anyone that tries to come in contact with him, including Chozo and Garuda, and it also seems to be his favorite method of attacking, which just speaks to its strength. The regular version seems to allow the user to ignore gravity, but we don't know exactly how it functions. It did let Kenjaku survive a black hole, which is quite impressive, but we don't see it used any other time besides that. Really, this ability isn't bad, it just gets outpaced by what's above it. Like Water Manipulation. Water Manipulation is the technique possessed by Dagon, which basically lets him control mass amounts of water. This ability is inherently dangerous because water itself is super powerful. Like, the amount of weight and power behind water is one of the greatest forces on Earth, and it can easily crush normal people, and that's not even considering, you know, drowning. This ability also allows the user to summon Shikigami, but we only see that done by Dagon in his domain, so we don't know if it's exclusive to the domain or not. Even without the Shikigami though, water on its own is super deadly, and considering the volume it is summoned at, there's no question as to why this technique is rounding out the top 20. At 19 is Contractual Recreation. This ability is like Curse Spirit Manipulation except for objects you own. Basically anything you have a contract for can be recreated. This means knives, spas, houses, literally anything. This makes it one of those abilities that can be really strong in theory. You're really gonna tell me that a guy working as a contractor for the US military is not gonna be broken with this ability? Exactly. But on a serious note, there are a lot of cheap things that you can buy that can be deadly in the right circumstances, and the fact that the items are under the complete control of the user just means that they're even more deadly. Next is Plant Manipulation, the ability belonging to Hanami. As the name implies, this ability allows the user to control plants in a number of ways, such as creating masses of roots, creating cursed buds that will feed off of cursed energy, or creating this flower patch that will distract anyone that is subjected to it, including those like Satoru Gojo. These abilities give the user a huge amount of versatility and allowed Hanami to almost solo both the Kyoto and Tokyo students in their exchange event. This isn't too impressive considering it was season 1, but she was also pretty inexperienced, meaning a more experienced sorcerer with this technique could be far more powerful. It's overall a great ability, there's just a lot that outscale it. At 17 is Granite Blast. This one is pretty simple. Big blasts do big damage. Do I really need to say more? At 16 is Ice Manipulation. Ice Manipulation is a great technique. As the name implies, it allows the user to control ice, and this can be done in a number of ways. The most obvious is of course freezing opponents and areas, and we've seen this done in mass by Uraume, who can use this technique to cover a whole city block or freeze a whole bunch of sorcerers at once. We also see them use ice to create spikes, as well as using ice to freeze a body part and then breaking it with a punch. At one point she also summons this frozen orb thing, but we don't actually know what it does since we haven't seen their fight with Hikari in like 30 chapters. This shows us that it's not only a super versatile technique, it's also really strong, as it was able to dismember a sorcerer as strong as Hikari in Jackpot. Speaking of Hikari, his technique is at 15. Idle Death Gamble is one of the 2 domain-based abilities, with the other one belonging to Higuruma, who we'll cover in a little bit. Hikari's gives him unlimited cursed energy after rolling a 1 in 239 chance, which he can manipulate to lower the odds. This is great. Unlimited cursed energy is broken no matter how we put it. Not only does it allow Hikari to hit pretty hard, but it also makes him immortal since he has automatic reverse curse technique for the duration of 4 minutes and 11 seconds. This ability allowed Hikari to hang with Kashimo, and now he seems to be doing pretty well against Uraume too, which is quite impressive. This is also an ability that would be broken no matter who has it, as everyone would gain from the benefits, which is another reason it's so good. Like many abilities, there's nothing really holding it back. There are just other abilities that are more consistent, so it gets outscaled a bit. At 14 is Boogie Woogie. This might just be my favorite technique in the show. Basically, anytime Toto claps his hands, he can swap any 2 items with cursed energy, including items he's charged with cursed energy like rocks and shit. This alone is really broken and gives the user a lot of versatility in terms of manipulating the battlefield, but it doesn't stop there, because we later see this technique used with a Vibroslab, extending the technique into a completely broken iteration of it, as the vibrations basically turn it into an unpredictable roulette. If it wasn't for this second aspect, the technique would probably be a good amount lower down, but its unpredictability makes this ability broken with anyone who uses it. They just have to lose one of their hands to use it. Next is the other domain-based technique, Deadly Sentencing. Deadly Sentencing basically turns the domain expansion into a court case where the user is the prosecutor. If they can find the opponent guilty of a crime, they will be debuffed in some way, with the most standard being them losing their curse technique, and the strongest being the Executioner's Sword, which can kill anyone in 1 hit. This is as overpowered as it sounds, but here's the thing. The sword only gets activated if someone is found guilty of a crime that warrants the death penalty, which is not super common. In fact, the main reason this ability isn't higher up is because of the condition to find someone guilty of a crime for it to be of any use, as this is kind of a high barrier of entry for technique activation. This is pretty well contrasted by our technique at 12, which is Jacob's Ladder, which can be used anywhere at any time and do pretty good damage. But if we're being honest, this ability is kind of hard to rank once again. It essentially stops any curse technique it comes in contact with, which we see most notably do major damage to Sukuna and also break open the prison realm. The ability to stop any curse technique in its tracks is insanely broken. It pretty much means that anytime this technique is used, the opponent loses an opportunity to attack while still losing the cursed energy from said attack. It'll even outright kill reincarnated sorcerers, which is pretty important considering how many of them there are running around in the Culling games. But the fact it could theoretically stop Infinity, destroy the prison realm, and do major damage to Sukuna is reason enough for it to be up here. I wonder what would happen if it was used on Kinjaku. Let me know what you think would happen in the comments down below. At 11, we have Projection Sorcery. Seeing this ability so high up might be a surprise, but I think it makes sense. This ability is the second best ability for mobility and speed in the entire series, behind only the Limitless technique. This alone is really impressive, as it can allow the user to outspeed almost any opponent, making it easy to overwhelm the vast majority of the cast. On top of this, if the sorcerer touches someone while using this technique, they must move at 24 frames per second or they will get stuck in a frame of animation for 1 second. This, combined with the speed of the technique, allows the user to pretty easily control the flow of a battlefield, freezing opponents quickly and also doing major damage to them by breaking the frames of animation they're trapped in. We see this used by both Naobito and Noya, and in both cases, it seems very strong, with Naobito kind of rocking Dagon even after he came out of his cursed womb, and Noya being able to keep up with partially awakened Maki. Both of these are pretty impressive feats, and between them and the implications of the technique, I think 11 is a pretty sound placing. Rounding out the top 10, we have the Limitless technique. But first, please consider subscribing. I would love if we could hit 100k before Jujutsu Kaisen ends, and while it is a bit of a stretch, I think we can do it with your help. It is your support that has gotten this channel as far as it has, so if you haven't subbed yet, now is the best time to do so. Plus, that 100k mark is coming up pretty fast. Don't you want to be able to say we're here before 100k? Only 25 people on the entire planet will be able to say that, and that number is dropping quickly, so sub now, please. The Limitless technique is nearly impossible to rank. On one hand, with the 6 eyes, it is probably the best technique in the show, giving the user a nigh invulnerable force field and attacks that can one-shot 99% of the cast. But without the 6 eyes, it's basically unusable, or at least that's what's insinuated. We never actually see someone with just the Limitless technique no 6 eyes, so it's really hard to say just how different it would be. With the 6 eyes, it's likely the best ability in the show, but without it, I wouldn't put it any higher than like 30. So I think 10 is a pretty good good average considering how strong the next 9 abilities are. And no, I'm not going to summarize the Limitless like I have for others. I've just already done it like 7 different times and it would take so long. So let's just move on to number 9, where we have the final technique of the disaster curses, fire manipulation, belonging to Jogo. Fire manipulation is an insanely broken technique, allowing the user to control fire and fire-based natural disasters like meteors and lava. This ability is especially dangerous to human sorcerers, as burns are not something that can be easily healed, if at all. We've seen it straight up end at least one sorcerer and do major damage to 2 others. So if it's so broken, why is it so low? Well, first of all, 9th is not low. It's a really respectable placing. It's just that at this point, every technique is insanely powerful and fire manipulation just doesn't keep up with the next tier of strength. At 8, we have construction. Construction as a technique really depends on the sorcerer. It is inherently non-optimal in terms of cursed energy efficiency, so the user has to be able to think outside the box in terms of how to make it usable. In Jujutsu Kaisen, we see 2 construction users, one who does this successfully in Yozuru and one that doesn't in Mai. Mai also has the disadvantage of being split with Maki, inherently limiting her potential, but she also didn't try at all, so she's basically the floor of this technique. Yozuru, on the other hand, put a lot of effort into optimizing construction and came up with some pretty good techniques, becoming one of the strongest fighters in the Heian era. The thing is though, I don't think Yozuru is anywhere near the peak of this technique. Think about how much energy efficiency has changed in the past 1,000 years, and how much more inspiration a sorcerer could draw from for this technique with modern day technology. So I think the peak of the construction technique is far beyond what we see, meaning that Yozuru is likely just above average with this technique. And if a sorcerer like that is just above average, then it's gotta be a pretty strong technique. In 7th, we have another one of my favorite abilities, Star Rage. This ability is basically punch really hard and get good results. But when I say hard, I mean hard. Like kill special grade cursed spirits in one hit hard. Like punch through arms kinda hard. It's a great technique no matter how you slice it, and it only gets better with the black hole. Now I know what you might be thinking. Chris, earlier you said Mystic Beast Amber sucks because it kills its user. Now you're saying Star Rage is good even though it does the same thing. Well, yeah. For 2 reasons. First of all, Star Rage doesn't always kill its user. The user cannot use Black Hole and still use the technique. And second, creating a Black Hole is so much more powerful than anything Mystic Beast Amber can do. Like if Kashimo could turn into a nuke before he died, then there might be some loose comparability. But he couldn't, so there's not. Star Rage is dope as hell and really strong, and I cannot be convinced otherwise. At 6, we have Shrine, the ability of Sukuna and Yuji, and also kind of Yuta. Do I even need to explain this one? It's Shrine. It's one of the most iconic abilities in the show. For a quick breakdown, the ability has 3 aspects. First is Dismantle, which cuts at a set strength and is usually used for inanimate objects. Next is Cleave, which is mostly used on beings with cursed energy and can be adjusted to cut them down in one slash. And third is Furnace, which is basically a firebomb that covers the diameter of Sukuna's domain. This is one of the strongest attacks in the show, up there with Hollow Purple. In fact, this technique in general is really strong, but there is an issue. Sukuna is the main person using this ability, which skews how we view its strength. If the average sorcerer used this technique, would it be as broken as we see it? Probably not, but it would still be good. I mean, Furnace is the type of attack that would be good no matter who uses it, even if it's not quite as strong as when we see it used by Sukuna. If we were just taking Sukuna into account, it would probably be a top 3 ability, but when we consider the skew, it gets knocked down just a little bit. At 5 is Copy. It might be surprising to see Copy this low, especially since I've sung praise to this ability a number of times in the past, but the thing is, it actually got a pretty major nerf in the most recent chapter. Prior to 267, we were all under the impression that Copy could just unconditionally copy a technique if Rika ate a piece of the user, but now we know that stronger techniques require more of the body to be consumed, and there is a limit on how many times a technique can be used if Rika doesn't consume enough of the body. This means stronger techniques like the 10 Shadows technique or Limitless technique would require a lethal dose, and even then they still might not be fully usable. Not only this, but if the original user uses Reverse Curse technique to recover a body part that was consumed, Yuta loses access to the technique. Both of these aspects highly limit Copy in a way that it wasn't before, which is the main reason it's not as high up as it usually is. It's still a great technique, obviously, it's just not as completely broken as we once thought it was. In 4th, we have Cursed Spirit Manipulation. When it comes to versatile techniques, there really aren't any that give the versatility of Cursed Spirit Manipulation. As the name implies, this ability allows the user to control any cursed spirits they are stronger than. For curses relative to their strength, they have to beat them in order order to control them, but if not, the process is automatic. This versatility alone is already really strong, as the user can have a tool for every situation, but it's not the only good application. The user can also reinforce cursed spirits with their own cursed energy to make even weak cursed spirits threatening. And there's also, of course, Maximum Uzumaki, which sacrifices a strong cursed spirit in exchange for a super strong attack and a one-time use of the ability of the cursed spirit. This can also be done with mass numbers of weaker cursed spirits, but the user does not gain any cursed techniques from cursed spirits below grade 1. All of this gives the technique a high level of strength in addition to the versatility that is inherent to it. The only thing holding this technique back is that even special grade cursed spirits are not all that strong defensively. They're not weak, but there are abilities in the show that can one-shot them, like Star Rage, Hollow Purple, Furnace, and Reverse Curse technique output. Luckily, these techniques aren't exactly common, but it does give cursed spirit manipulation some verifiable counters with Jujutsu, which is not something the top 3 really have. And this brings us to our bronze medal, which is Comedian. I know I've said this a few times throughout this video, but this technique is hard to rank. Here's the thing, the power of this technique is 100% dependent on whether or not the user is aware they have this technique and how it functions. Part of me thinks there might be a condition that the user has to be unaware of it, but this hasn't been confirmed. Even if they are aware, that would change their perception of their humor in the same way that humor changes depending on the circumstances you're in. The ability to alter reality on your silly little whim is still great no matter the user though, so even without dark humor or knowledge of the technique, it's still broken. I mean, we saw what an idiot like Takuba did with it, right? Look, I love him, but it's made pretty clear that he's not the brightest bulb in the tool shed. While this technique does have counters in the form of breaking a user's confidence, this isn't inherently obvious. And it takes someone who can dissect the user's sense of humor to do it, which also is not super common. I mean, even when we saw Kinjaku worm his way into Takuba's brain, he still recovered, meaning that other users should be able to counter the counter to this technique. Well, I guess there is probably one other counter as well, and it's a Shikigami in the technique at number 2, meaning number 2 is the 10 Shadows technique. It should have been obvious this technique was up here, right? I mean, Mahoraga on its own is like a top 10 ability, so the fact that it's only one of the 10 shadows shows just how much this technique has to offer. That's not to say every shadow is as strong as Mahoraga, because that's obviously not the case, but they all have a role to fill, and they all fill them well. From support to offense to defense, not a single aspect of Jujutsu is left uncovered with this technique, making it one of the most well-rounded techniques in the show. There's also a bunch of flexibility in the shadows themselves. We've seen sorcerers use the shadows to partially summon Shikigami in order to prevent them from being destroyed, as well as using the shadows to trap an opponent or flood an area, and of course, to store cursed tools. On top of this, the user can also combine Shikigami to make stronger Shikigami or just expand their usefulness. And they can even use the technique of the Shikigami without summoning it, as we saw with Max Elephant's water. Oh, and the user can also change the interpretation of the Shikigami to change its purpose as well. Really, the options are endless, and while this is a great technique, it does have some notable issues. First of all, the user of the technique needs to go through a taming ritual to be able to use the Shikigami in the first place. This is an issue for stronger Shikigami like Mahoraga, who has never actually been tamed by a 10 Shadows user. The other issue is once a Shikigami is destroyed, it's gone forever. There's no coming back for it. This is kind of a big deal considering there are only 10 Shikigami total, so if they're all lost, the user essentially has no technique. While these aren't huge issues and the positives of the technique definitely outweigh the negatives, they are enough of an issue to keep the 10 Shadows out of the top spot. So that means, in my opinion, Idol Transfiguration is the best ability in the show. It's just broken in every single way. First of all, it's extremely deadly to humans, as the alteration of their soul will destroy their body. Just one touch did major damage to Nanami, who is a full-fledged grade 1 sorcerer, and that was from a fairly new Mahito. And if it's a touch on a non-sorcerer or a weak sorcerer, you can just kiss your life goodbye. Just like that. The damage Idol Transfiguration does is also soul damage, which is the type of damage that cannot be healed by reverse curse technique only by time, making it even more threatening in longer battles. And when a victim succumbs to this ability, they will be turned into transfigured humans, which the Idol Transfiguration user can make into pretty much whatever they want. We see so many applications of this technique, so I just want to showcase a few of my favorites on screen now rather than going over every one. If this was just the technique, it would already be insanely powerful, but it's not. It's just half the technique, as the user can also manipulate their own soul, allowing them to turn their body into whatever they want. There are limitations on this aspect, as the bigger the user makes themselves, the slower and less powerful they become. But still, being able to stretch your arms or turn them into swords or create a body double is still incredibly powerful, and they all only make the first aspect of the technique more powerful as well, as they can extend the range that Idol Transfiguration can be used over. This ability can also awaken curse techniques in those that do not have them, them and heal people of their heavenly restrictions, making it extremely good for support as well. But I think one of the most broken aspects of idol transfiguration is actually based on an implication made later in the series. See, during the fight against Sukuna, it is revealed that people can use hand signs and chants to strengthen their curse techniques. This is part of what makes Sukuna so strong, as having 4 arms and 2 mouths allows him to chant and do hand signs while fighting unimpeded like a normal sorcerer would be. Idol transfiguration can take this aspect to a whole nother level, as the user can make as many arms and mouths on their body as they want, allowing them to hold a ton of hand signs and work multiple chants as well, further strengthening their already deadly technique. To be honest, I think an argument could be made that any of these top 3 are the best ability, but for me, this is the correct order. There are a few techniques that I forgot about, and I just want to rattle them off quickly now. There's Panda's ability, which is in low mid tier, Yaga's ability, which is in low high tier, and this dude's Shikigami ability, which is in bottom tier. Sorry about that, but I don't have time to re-record the entire video at this point. As always, thank you so much for watching, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in a little bit.